Welcome to Healthy Living. Today we're talking about pain relief, physical pain of any type, such as back pain, joint pain, headaches, and more. The book is called Living Beyond Pain, written by Doctors Linda Mintle and James Cribbs, who join me today. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, we're glad to be here. We're glad to be talking about this topic because a lot of people experience pain.
Indeed. So, Dr. Cribbs, you actually talk in this book about ways to alleviate pain without using opioid pain pills, prescription pain medication. Are a lot of people surprised that there are ways to alleviate pain without drugs?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that. One of the things that we've learned about the way we prescribed opioid medication, that from 2006 to 2014, we prescribed over 100 billion doses of hydrocodone and oxycodone. So the way we've been treating pain has kind of been single-dimensional, and we need to become a little bit more creative in the way that we treat pain so that we can protect patients and also help them have better outcomes.
Dr. Mintle, you are a psychologist and you have served on the boards of 2 medical schools, right. And yet this particular subject is very personal to you because you became a chronic pain sufferer after an ice skating incident. Talk about that.
I did, and I was showing my kids how I used to grow up skating, and I thought I could do just like I did when I was 16. And apparently I was in my 40s. That didn't work so well. And I was doing a flying camel, and I had a horrible fall on the ice. And I knew when I hit the ice that something was really wrong. It was excruciating pain. I felt something crack or move. I didn't know what was going on, and I couldn't get up off the ice. But over months, it just got progressively worse. I was having trouble sitting at my desk. I couldn't sit in the car for very long without pain. And then it got worse where I couldn't sit or stand. And the only time I could get any relief from the pain was when I would be flat on my stomach. And that was all I could do. I couldn't sleep at night. I did have a physician who prescribed me some opioids. I didn't know much about them. I'm one of these people who rarely ever takes medicine for anything. And so I got the prescription. I took the first pill. It made me so ill, and things were spinning, and I felt nauseous, and it was just worse almost than the pain. So I knew I couldn't tolerate those. So, Lori, I began to look for anything that would make my pain better. And I tried all kinds of things like physical therapy. I finally went to an acupuncture physician who gave me some relief for about 3 to 4 hours, and then discovered, and I think this is one of the things that Dr. Cribbs does so well, he talks a lot about you have to get to the root of that pain, like what is causing that pain. We don't always know in some cases, but in my case, an MRI showed that there was a huge bulging disc that was in my L5 in my back, and it was sitting on my sciatic nerve, which was causing all kinds of leg pain as well. I had a really good outcome to the surgery. But after the surgery, I was in a lot of pain again after the surgery in the healing process. And I found that doing some mild exercise, I actually took up Pilates, and that really helped bring me back to health again.
Well, it's interesting that your body sort of rejected the opioids and they really didn't work for you, Dr. Cribbs. So many people do respond well to the opioids, and this in large part has created a crisis in our country. And really it started with a lot of misinformation because a lot of doctors were told that these medications weren't very addictive.
That's correct. So in the 1990s we developed some synthetic opioids that we didn't think were as addictive as we later found out that they were. And so that's really what brought on the opioid crisis, is that we were prescribing opioid medication thinking that this was not as addictive, and patients became in danger because of that. So one of the things that we need to do now is to orient our focus in different ways to look at ways we can reduce their pain without resorting to opioid medication. It's also really important that for people who are using opioids, it's important to know that most of the people who are on opioid medication are being managed by their physician, and that they are taking it safely. But the people who we're concerned about are for those who have lost control, and we want to make sure that we're caring for them, protecting them, and providing new options so that we're less dependent on opioid medication.
So you really separate in the book the 2 distinct types of pain: acute pain and chronic pain. And really, this is more about people who are in chronic pain. Dr. Mintle, what are some examples of people who are in chronic pain? You had chronic pain in your back.
Lower
And back
back.
pain is a big one.
Right. Headaches. A lot of people deal with migraines and different types of headaches. Fibromyalgia is one that people have not understood well for years and years and years, and that creates pain that is continuous as well. So there's a lot of causes. I just want to say a couple of things about what Dr. Cribbs just said. We want to make sure that we understand that not everybody on an opioid is an addict. So I feel bad for people who think, they're upset that they're being thrown into this crisis as the problem, and we're not saying that. But for a lot of people who are in chronic pain, the types of pain that we're talking about that just continues on and on and on, past a 6-month period usually, opioids are really not that effective. The reason people take them is for relief. They're not taking them to get high. They're not taking them to be altered and be out of it. They're just trying to find relief. And so one of the things is that we've looked at the research, and it shows that these opioids are not always real effective in helping people with that type of pain. So we want to have different ways and different alternatives that people can use to try to get the relief they need, improve their quality of life, and improve their functioning.
I think one of the things that struck me, Dr. Cribbs, about the book was how we perceive pain in our brains, and we can actually rewire our brains to minimize the effect of pain. That is a brand new revelation to, I'm sure, a lot of people. Can you talk about how that works?
Yeah, so the reason that we have pain, at least initially, is it's a learning process. When we put ourselves in danger or we get injured, we have a response that is perceived as pain so that we don't repeat that episode again. And so that creates these neural pathways that say, well, I need to avoid this so that I don't have a bad outcome or I don't hurt myself. What happens with acute pain is that you have an injury, and that acute pain persists, and eventually you have that same pathway firing over and over again, so that pathway becomes entrenched, and eventually it becomes switched on and left on. So they continue to have that perception of pain, even perhaps after that healing period. So there's an important part that we have to understand that perception of pain can be, if it's neuroplastic one way, it should be neuroplastic the other, and understanding that can help a patient get ahead of their pain and have a more functional life.
It's like a faulty alarm. So when we talk about it in the book, we say it's like the alarm goes off when there's a fire, but what happens with chronic pain, that alarm keeps misfiring. So it's real to the person who's experiencing it. It's in your head, but it's not. We're not saying it's in your head.
That's a very important point to bring out, because a lot of people are minimized who are experiencing real pain.
Right, it's in your head, and that you're sensing it in your head, but it feels real. People that have this rewiring of the brain, and there's a process called central sensitization that happens with the nervous system. They're more hypersensitive to pain. Think of it that way, that they're feeling pain sometimes that somebody else might not feel, or they're feeling it more intensely. And that really is a function of our nervous system and the way it gets changed. So much of what we're talking about in terms of helping people is calming down that nervous system and changing the brain away from that pain and into a different way of thinking and feeling and relating to the pain, so that alarm doesn't keep misfiring.
Right, and one of the things that I really try to talk to my patients about is that your pain isn't all in your head. It rarely is. But the way you relate to it is in your head.
That's the key.
And so giving patients some tools, some ways to understand their pain better, understand how they can relate to it better, and understand how to manage it better, it helps them get ahead, and it helps minimize their pain and gives them a more functional life.
And a lot of people who are in pain are really down in the dumps, and they probably might hear a message like that and say, that sounds like a bunch of hogwash. Does it work?
It takes time. Learning how to manage this takes some time, and it takes some very strategic steps. One of the things we highlight in the book is a concept of marginal gains. So this is a concept from the business world that we see in the sports world. So the example that we talk about is from the Tour de France. And in the history of the race, it's over a 100-year-old race, but over the 100-year-old history, the British team had never won until they hired Sir David Brailes, who was from the business world. He had coached the Olympic cycling team, the track team, but not the Tour de France. So when he took that over, he looked into every piece that went into winning that race, from the way that they tuned the bikes, from the positioning of the seats, the pedals, but far beyond that. They looked at where they slept, they looked at how they slept, where they stayed, what they were doing with their nutrition. They looked at the supply truck and how they could improve that too. They looked at every aspect that went into that race, and they tried to improve those aspects just 1%, and that aggregate led to tremendous success. So one of the things that we're trying to help patients understand is if we're going to try to give you some tools that if you can make a 1% change in a lot of different areas, in a few different key areas, the aggregate will be less pain and more functioning.
And that is doable. So once again, the book is called Living Beyond Pain. We're going to take a quick break right now and come back and talk about ways you can change your thoughts about the way you perceive your pain. Stay with us.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
We're back with Drs. Linda Mintle and James Cribbs, co-authors of the book Living Beyond Pain. And Dr. Mintle, we talked before the break about how re-engineering our thoughts actually does help minimize pain. Talk about some of the ways that we can change our beliefs about our pain.
So one of the easiest ways is to really think about, do I start to catastrophize about my pain? This is very common. It's easy to do, where you start to think things like, I'm never going to get better. I can only go on disability. What kind of a future am I going to have? And instead, what we want you to do is grab those thoughts, start thinking about how you could replace that with something that's a little bit more positive. Maybe you can't throw the ball like you used to, but maybe you can do some other things, create a new normal with this pain, and try to focus on what you can do versus what you can't do. Changing those beliefs, replacing them with something that's more positive, more hopeful, more helpful. In the Christian faith, we believe that there always is help, there's always a way, there's always hope for what we can do, and so we want to move forward in that way. The other thing that would be good is to think about, how do my thoughts affect my emotions? And for a lot of people that are dealing with pain, depression is a part of that. And if you don't grab those thoughts and you make them more positive, and I'm not saying you're saying things that aren't true to yourself. You're not saying, I'll just pretend my pain isn't here. No, you're acknowledging that you have pain, but the more you focus on good things, it's a biblical idea. Think on things that are good, that are positive, things in your life that are working, things you have gratitude for, things that you're thankful for. The more we do that, it rewires the brain in a positive way, and it literally turns down the volume of pain. The same is true with emotions. The more we deal with our depression, the more we get treatment for that, the more we start to get lifted out of that depression, it's going to also turn down the volume of pain. So those are very important things to pay attention to.
Dr. Cribbs, it's really amazing to me how we can change the way we think. And you really recommend doing a gratitude journal, because focusing on things for which we are grateful really helps minimize pain. Who knew?
It does. And one of the things is at the root of pain, and we talk about the depression and things like that, is that there's a sense of loss of control. That you have something that happened to you and you're not recovering. And so one of the things that helps you get control is to do a gratitude journal. What this does is it helps you spend some focused time, maybe 3 to 5 minutes in the evening or in the morning, and you're actually writing out things that you think are good, that are good about your life, the things that are positive in your life. And what that does is it puts more focus on what's good, and it activates different areas of the brain. And it doesn't put as much focus on the things that on the pain or things that are bothering you. So you're reinforcing more positive pathways, healthier brain pathways, and you're de-emphasizing the pain pathways in your brain, which is what we want to do. We want to rewire the brain into a more healthy direction.
And you talk also about meditation. And Linda, for people who are of the Christian faith, sometimes people are thinking, I don't want to do, the mindfulness activities and things like that. But you say that there's a right way and a wrong way to do this.
So for the Christian person, what we're told scripturally is to put on the mind of Christ and to meditate on those things that are in the Bible and to meditate on the person of Christ and the person of Jesus. So if you focus your mind onto Christ and all the good things he's done for you, that's usually praise, then you worship him for who he is. All of that changes the brain. We have lots of studies that show that prayer actually changes the brain for good. And prayer is actually one of the evidence-based treatment that turns down the volume on pain.
Oh, wonderful. Well, we're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, instead of talking about ways that we relieve pain through our thinking, the doctors are going to tell us some concrete things that we can do to help minimize pain. So stay with us.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
I think as a father, it's my job, to lead, just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
We're back talking to Drs. James Cribbs and Linda Mental. Their new book is Living Beyond Pain, and we're talking about ways to minimize pain, eradicate it, hopefully, without the use of opioid pain medications. And we were talking before about all these ways that we can re-engineer our thinking, but now let's get down to the concrete things that we can do. And one of the main ones is exercise, movement, which is the very last thing people in pain want to do, Dr. Cribbs.
Well, the important thing about exercise is that movement is life. The more that we move, the better we function. And so there's a couple key things that happen with exercise. One, our body becomes more efficient. And the more efficient our body is, the more margin we have for our natural neuromodulators to address pain. Also, one of the things that exercise does is it helps move lymph. When we have pain, a lot of times there's something that occurs called inflammation, which is what makes the area painful, especially with acute pain. When you exercise, you move the lymph away from that painful area, and that should help with increase the blood flow, and it should help minimize the pain to some degree.
Well, you talk about inflammation being a problem, and Dr. Mintle, we know that so many of the foods that we eat cause inflammation, so diet is a huge portion of this.
It is, and if you're a person in chronic pain, you really need to consider the types of foods that you're eating. We looked at all the different diets, we looked at what people were recommending from a research point of view, and we took the recommendation of the Cleveland Clinic, who has done a lot of research in this area. And most people will know the Mediterranean diet. They've heard that diet. It's an anti-inflammatory diet with an emphasis on a lot of whole leaf, green leafy vegetables, fruits, whole grains, basically moving away from refined sugars and processed foods. And a lot of times, even something simple, we didn't spend a lot of time on this in the book because we didn't want to get into all the different types of spices and everything, but turmeric is a natural one that does help with inflammation. And so sometimes there are some very simple things that you can sprinkle on your food, use your food as medication, and it will make a difference in your body.
An anti-inflammatory diet. And then kind of on the heels of diet, Dr. Cribbs, is weight. Just carrying around a lot of extra weight can make your pain worse.
It can. You know, I have a tremendous amount of compassion for patients who struggle with weight, but it does increase your pain in certain ways. One of the ways that it does is that it places extra pressure on the joints. And so especially patients who are struggling with osteoarthritis, that extra weight can put pressure on those joints that are already susceptible to having more pain. And so, but also one of the important things about lowering your weight is that, again, it's about body efficiency. The more margin we create for our body to function normally, the more we can naturally reduce our pain with our neuromodulatory processes that we have in our body.
And another thing that you talk about is seeking medical attention for manipulation of your core and other musculoskeletal issues. And you actually experienced this, Dr.
I did experience it. It's fantastic. People will hear it and they'll hear OMT, and Dr. Cribbs can explain what that is because he's a master at doing it. He's helped me with some pain issues, and I really, truly thought it was almost amazing. I don't know why more people don't know about it.
What exactly is it?
So osteopathic manipulation is evaluating the structure of the body and finding where there's an imbalance, where there's an uneven load on a joint, and trying to improve the efficiency of how our joints relate to one another, the efficiency of muscles, and we're trying to restore function with it. When our body is optimized in the way we function, we feel better. A joint that's compressed, a joint that has an uneven weight on it, is not going to feel good. Things that are stuck don't feel good. So when there's freedom of motion, it really does help to reduce pain. And there's also a neuromodulatory effect with that as well. So as osteopathic physicians, we're trained to look at the body, to look at the ways that there may be asymmetry, look at the ways where there might be an uneven load on a certain area of the body or a joint, and we try to release that so that you have freedom of motion, and from that restored motion, you should be able to reduce your pain.
Fantastic. Once again, the book is called Living Beyond Pain, and we'll be back right after this message to talk more about ways that you can minimize your pain without prescription painkillers. Stay tuned.
Sex before you marry is a bad idea. Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faithwire, Monday night at 9:30. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch The Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
We're back talking about pain management with doctors Linda Mintle and James Cribbs, authors of the book Living Beyond Pain. And Dr. Mintle, you say that relaxation techniques really work.
Change your stress, you're going to change your pain. So stress amps up pain. Some of the easiest techniques, you can do them in the car, you can do them when you're sitting at your office, you start to have pain. Sometimes just deep breathing. Taking long, deep diaphragmatic breathing is a great way to reduce pain. There's a technique called guided imagery. It's nothing weird. You just create a really positive scene in your mind. Some people from the Christian faith will do their image of heaven and start thinking about it, all the sounds, the smells, the tastes, anything that they can come up with on their scene, a warm, sunny beach, any place that puts you in a wonderful state of mind. And walking yourself through that actually relaxes the body and takes it down. There's a whole lot of other ones of progressive muscle relaxation. We go through a number of them in the book, but they're easy to use, they're portable, and they can really help.
Truly fascinating. And I was surprised, Dr. Cribbs, to know that really getting a good night's sleep on a regular basis helps minimize pain. I mean, we know it's good for other things, but for pain relief.
Well, sleep is restorative and rest is restorative, so it's important to try to get a good night's sleep. The difficulty is that for patients who struggle with pain, a lot of times sleep is elusive. So you have to, the marginal gain that we try to encourage patients to add into their routine is to figure out the way that helps them to set up an optimized way for them to sleep. So that means to have a dark room. It means to going to bed at the same time every night, waking at the same time every morning, making sure you minimize your screen time before you go to bed, maybe read a book, add in the gratitude journal before you go to bed. So you have a routine that tells your body, I'm ready to rest and I'm ready to sleep. And that will take the focus off the pain and it'll help your body do the things that it needs to do to restore.
Well, one thing I wanted to mention, we only have 30 seconds left, is that these are not just good ideas. This is all evidence-based. Talk about the research behind this.
That was really important to both of us as we were writing this, because there's so many things on the market and so many things you hear about in the culture that say this helps pain, but you really have to look at it scientifically. Evidence-based means there's double-blind studies, it's been tested, it's been tried, and it's been true. So we put those in the book.
Well, so many people are dealing with this, and this is a fantastic manual. I highly recommend it. Dr. Linda Mintle, Dr. James Cribbs, thank you so much. Once again, the book is called Living Beyond Pain, and we thank you for writing it and for being here, and thank you also for joining us today. We'll see you again next time.